Hey folks, let's tie a Smallie pattern today that can easily be mistaken for baitfish or crawfish, depending on where you fish it in the water column. It's a very versatile little pattern. Kind of looks like both, kind of fishes as both. Put it on the bottom, you got a crawdad, strip it a little more aggressively, and you got yourself a minnow imitation. It's always nice when you can mimic multiple things with one fly. So let's tie up the Smallie Craw today, which does that pretty well. It's an easy tie. It's a nice little addition to your Smallie streamer box, and it will catch you some fish. We are going to tie this bad boy on a size 6 2X long streamer hook, and I'm just going to start dressing that with some 6/0 thread. You can really use color of choice. And I'm just going to dress that up, and I'm going to bring that thread back, and we are going to install some dumbbell eyes here on the rear. If you are new to dumbbell eyes, one thing that will help you out is getting a lot of just X wraps over those eyes, but then coming in and going down around the base. That really will help to cinch those X wraps down even tighter. Kind of compresses them in so that they sort of constrict around those dumbbell eyes. You can also come in and set them with a little glue, which I do advise you to do, because dumbbell eyes that like to move around are pretty annoying. So, you know, just take some steps to cinch those guys down real well. So what I have done is I have taken a piece of awesome Possum zonker strip, and I have just pierced the hook through that strip, and I'm going to tie that down. So we're tying it on the bottom side of the hook. Since we have our dumbbells on the back, this is going to ride hook point up. So I want the finished side of that going off the rear of this pattern. You can tie this with a standard rabbit zonker if you want. With the awesome Possum, I just like that it's a little bit coarser, and it's still got some movement to it, but it is a little bit coarser, and it just pushes a little bit more water, and I like the effect that I get out of it. So certainly you can substitute that for just a standard rabbit zonker if you wish, but you can see this has got a little bit more of a coarse guard hair in it, and I like that. Holds its shape and doesn't compress down quite as much as that rabbit does. Now we're going to go into Lazer Dub mode. So this is Senyo's Lazer Dub, and what we are going to do is just sort of card that. So that just means you grab the ends and pull it apart and just keep stacking it back together. What that's going to do is line up everything nicely for you, so that when you come in here and place this and tie it in, you won't lose a bunch of fibers whenever you fold this back. We are going to tie a bundle there on the top, and then we'll do the same on the bottom. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to pull those fibers apart, stack them back together, and just card it up. And then we'll tie a bundle right down here on the bottom as well. And once you get that tied in, just advance your thread forward, get a couple wraps in front of it, and the ones down here by the hook are the ones you'll have to fight with just a little bit to get it to lay back. There we go. Now that just gives us a nice little wrap coming off of the back there, and it'll give us a nice transition between our tail and where our body is starting. There we go. That got all that off our hook. Right, now I'm going to come right here on the side, and I'm going to tie in 3 strands, rubber legs. And this side, I'm going to tie to where it sort of terminates just before the possum. And then I'm going to double these over so that I get another set of 3 on the opposite side. Get those tied in. And I'm going to do the same with those. I'll trim those down so that they terminate just short of our zonker. Just kind of let that hang out. Lash everything in and clean up a little bit. So now I'm going to make a dubbing loop. And this will be brushed out a lot. So I'm going to make that multiple strands so that it'll be nice and tough for us. Probably run about 3 or 4 strands of thread. So I'm just bringing those down and I'm looping them around my finger. And then I'll advance that thread up to about the 1/3 point or so. And I'm going to now just start loading up this dubbing loop with that laser dub. So again, I'm using a Senyo Lazer Dub in olive for this. Of course, you know, you can really make this pattern in countless different colors. In my waterway, it's getting us in the neighborhood of a lot of the baitfish. It's getting us in the neighborhood of a lot of the crawfish. The olive is just a nice versatile color for my neck of the woods. You know, this is going to be a Smallie pattern. Of course, we can do whites and chartreuse. Always worth having some gold in there. Anything that you want, you can make it happen. The olive for me just covers a lot. So once you get that dubbing loop twisted up, we're just going to start wrapping that right up the body to about that 1/3 point, and go ahead and capture it, tie it in, trim out the excess. So we are still going to tie in a fair amount of materials here. So you don't have to brush this out too much, but we do want to brush it out a little bit just to get a little volume under everything there. That'll be fine. I'm going to take some more of that laser dub and just card it up. I'm going to tie it in right here behind those eyes, both top and bottom. And this still compresses down a lot in the water. So even though we're sort of bulking this out a little bit more bait fishy, it still goes, you know, fairly small. So we still get that sort of half and half crawdad look and baitfish look as well. Now, me personally, I always like to give it a little something else. I could complete it with just that laser dub if I want, but I like to do this last little section up here around my eyes and around the collar area and everything in a different dubbing. I like to use this Czech dubbing from Tyers Dungeon. It's in gold. I've kind of mentioned in some of my other smallmouth tying videos that gold is magic for smallmouth, not just in my area. This is something that I've tested in plenty of different waterways, and incorporating gold into patterns for smallies really gets it done. So we are going to brush this out a fair amount. So it probably seems like I'm going super crazy here with these dubbing noodles, but we are going to brush it out quite a bit. We'll end up losing a fair amount of dubbing, so dub it fairly heavy so that we're not too sparse back here on the back end of this fly. And once you get a fair amount of that material in there, we'll just go ahead and whip finish. There we go. And now come in and brush some of that out so it just sort of melts right back into that material that we've already tied in. There we go. That's the Smallie Craw. It's very full. You can save yourself a lot of materials by doing that dubbing loop, as opposed to just packing this thing full of that laser dub all the way down. You can do that dubbing loop, skip a lot of that space, get this up here, which will fill it back out, and you'll save yourself a lot of material doing that. Again, the tail does not have to be possum. I like that it's a little bit more rigid. When all of this gets wet, I don't get a super noodly tail coming off, because this stays a little bit rigid, as will that possum, and it just makes a little bit more of a bulky looking fly without actually being bulky. That's the nice thing about this pattern. So you can pick up your pace and strip this a lot quicker and get a little bit higher in the water column, and you're looking a little bit more like a bait fish, or you can really let this thing punch down and you're looking a little bit like a crawfish. So it's just a nice, versatile, cover multiple things with one fly pattern. And the smallmouth, largemouth as well, will just blast this thing. I say it would catch trout. I've never really spent any time fishing it on trout, but I am sure you'll find a taker here and there. So all of these little things makes for a really nice profile in the water, but it's not that bulky of a fly. It's really not. But it maintains a lot of that shape, but it narrows down enough that it's still bait fishy, but it's got enough shape to it that it's also crayfishy. So tie some up. These are super fun to catch smallmouth on, and they work like a charm. Tight lines, my friends, and God bless.